What's up, YouTube? Chris from TCG Battle Collections here, and I know I've been gone for a long time, but I've had a lot going on, and I've started up another channel, and I've been up on that a little more than this. But I'm going to be doing more deck profiles and match videos as well, so without further ado, let's go over one of the newest sets that came out in the recent month. This is before Heroic Evolution, so I don't know when this is coming out, but this is Logic of Destruction, Light of Salvation, Dragonic Overlord, the Great Deck Profile. So, I'm not going to, spoil your time here, so let's just get started. Obviously, 4 copies of Dragonic Overlord. Basic. I'm not going to go over this card because chances are you already know what this guy does. And obviously, again, 4 copies of Dragonic Overlord, the Great. Now, obviously, this is a really good card because, it stands itself and Dragonic Neoflame. And once you ride it, you get to call on Neoflame from the drop zone, so extra attacks. It makes it so you have 5 attacks a turn if you have a full field. The grade 2 lineup, for now, I'm experimenting with it, but I'm keeping 2 Dragon Full Armor Busters in this deck. It gains an additional 3,000 power when your opponent has no rear guards, and when you ride or call it Soul Blast 2. Look at the retire one of your opponent's rear guards. Look at the top 7 cards of your deck. Search for an Overlord and add it to your hand. Then you shuffle your deck. Pretty simple, good Overlord searcher. Next up, I run 3 Dragonic Burnout. A lot of people run this at either 2 or 4, but I go with 3 because it's a really easy skill to use, and because it recycles. Counterblast 1. Once per turn, Counterblast 1. Move a grade 2 or greater card from the drop zone to the bottom and retire an opponent's rear guard. As long as it is retire an opponent's rear guard. Which is honestly really good for this deck because you need to retire a lot for some of the grade 1s in order to chain. And if anything, let's see, you end up calling these guys to the back row if you really want to. That way, if your opponent retires the front row, you still have these guys to use their abilities. Unless you're playing another Kagero deck or someone that moves it up. But really good retiring power, surprisingly cheap to retire a rear guard. Almost free. Next and obvious for this deck, Berserk Dragon. Some people will run 3. Very few run 2, but 4 I feel is ideal, mainly because on rear guard it gets 3,000 power when you have more rear guards than your opponent. And once you ride or call it Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, retire an opponent's rear guard. Simple as that. But if it's on the Vanguard, you get a free draw. Now, a lot of people that are still somewhat new to the game don't get that the draw is part of the ability, and you can draw even if your opponent has no rear guards to retire. So a Soul Blast and a Counterblast is a little costly, considering that Dragonic Overlord needs a Soul Blast for its 10k ability, but you might not use that very often. But while we do have a counter turn, this deck is still somewhat Counterblast heavy for a lot of the cards. But Berserk Dragon's a really good addition to the deck. Almost no deck shouldn't have at least 3. Out of 4, pretty standard. Last for the grade 2s. Another obvious, if you're playing the grade and you don't have this card, then you're an idiot. 4 Dragonic Neoflame. Simple card. When the grade attacks, it give it 5,000 power, and if you counterblast 2, the grade will get +1 critical. If you have 2 out, 10,000 power plus 2 critical with 4 counterblasts. Now, honestly, the counterblast 2 is a very costly ability, mainly because your opponent's going to guard the grade almost no matter what, so you have no real reason to use this unless you absolutely have to, and you know your opponent doesn't have any perfect guards whatsoever. But the 5k power is really good. The critical is somewhat costly. Some people run 3. Some people do run 3, but 4 is the ideal, the standard really. You really need the 4 of Dragonic Neoflame. Next, the grade 1s. For now, I run 2 Ralphia. I might switch him out for, or someone else for Calamity Tower Wyvern. But Rapia, pretty standard for a Kagero deck. If your opponent's Vanguard is retired by any means, give it 5k. It's great if you're boosting the Great or Dragonic Overlord. It'll apply some early game pressure. Next, I run 2 copies of the Embodiment of Armor Bar. Now, Bar is a mech card in a sense. It's good for retiring. The downside is that it's an on-play skill. Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1. Retire an opponent's rear guard in the same Great 2 or less rear guard that's in the same column as this card, so it has its limits, and it gets 5,000 power if you retire. This is only good for like the other grade ones that gain abilities and power from retiring. So I don't suggest playing this guy too early on in the game. But the fact that you need to retire rear guards for some effects to go off, it's good to have this guy in there. Like I said, him and Ralpia might switch out for Calamity Tower Wyvern. Bar is someone I'm most likely going to swap out at some point. Next up, another staple for the deck, the Countercharger, Flame of Hope Ammo. When it boosts, it gives an additional 3k power, basic. But its second ability is why everyone runs this card no matter what. When your opponent's rear guard is retired, by any means, that's the thing that doesn't really specify, but only when it's retired, retire Airmo, draw a card, then countercharge. This is good because if you play this card, and then you use an ability to retire, you basically replace this card in your hand in a sense. And if it was a counterblast, you basically get it back. So Airmo, standard for the deck, run 4 no matter what. Coming up next, we have 4 Sable Dragonoots. From the latest booster set. It's a good card. If it's on the Vanguard circle, if you're the first to attack, if its attack hits, you draw a card. So you get a drive check and a free draw. You get 2 cards in 1 turn. With a draw trigger, 3, even better. Its second ability is also really good because if your opponent's trigger is retired, retire him, draw 1 card. Really good. Like Airmo, it's a free draw. But again, like a lot of the like Airmo, you do need to retire a lot. Next up, the Grade Zeros. Obviously, the starter is Loser Runner Undu. The trigger lineup. I run 4 draws. 2 Buri, 2 Regem Carbuncle. Criticals. I run 6, and I obviously run 4 heals. So yeah, I'm sorry I haven't been on the channel at all lately. I've had a lot of stuff going on in my life. By the time this is uploaded, I'm most likely going to be off on vacation, so I might not be able to upload for a while. Just figured I'd do some. Hopefully, this is up by the time I get back, or sooner, or before I leave, ideally. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm going to do more deck profiles just so I can upload them more frequently. Hope you guys enjoyed and have an awesome day.